Waking the Kraken. I'm Wes Potts.
I'm Alex Koeneman.
And today we've got a special guest. We've got Chloe Massengale on the line right now. She's going to be joining us for a couple of our little things that we're doing today.
Yeah.
So Chloe is my girlfriend. We met Alex's last week.
Yeah.
And me and Chloe are also doing a podcast, but I'll talk more about that later. So today we're going to start off with not this video of a guy punching a bum that I had pulled up on my screen, but we're going to do. Alex, do you have anything that has been interesting to you recently or anything?
Yeah. Okay. So I've got this game that I wanted to play. I thought it'd be a good thing to do whenever I was still really sleepy.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Come up with a bad descriptor for a job description, like a timid gynecologist.
Okay. So like a timid something you don't want in that particular job. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
A bad description.
A weak stomach trash man.
No, yeah, weak.
So, Chloe, you got one?
No.
She should be a good person.
All right. How about an addicted what's the name? Now I can't even think of the word. Never mind. Pharmacist.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Pharmacist with an addictive personality. Mm-hmm. What about a? Oh man.
A kleptomaniac banker.
Yeah, that's not something you want in yours.
No.
I was gonna say. I was trying to think of something with banker, but you got it. How about a cowardly captain? That's an alliteration too, so it totally works.
What's the name for someone who's afraid of like blood or something?
Squeamish.
Or yeah, what is gonna say that?
Yeah.
Like a detective or something.
No, squeamish
detective or a squeamish surgeon. Squeamish surgeon would be something you didn't want. It's like, it's gross. Like,
I don't know. I kind of like the idea of a detective of being like, I just go in there and tell me what it looks like. I don't really like the sight of blood.
Just bring me the pictures. Yeah. I'll be fine with pictures. I'm okay with pictures. I'm not good with blood.
Now I haven't allegedly seen the crime scene, but I've been told in detail what it looks like.
Oh God, it's terrible. The crime is terrible. No, all that blood. God, it's terrible.
Oh, that's gross.
It's gross. Yeah, it's like a family was murdered. It's just.
It's just so fucking gross. Okay, what's another one that you don't want in your I was gonna say there's one that we throw around all the time in American like society. And it's the corrupt politician. It's nothing that you want, but it's always around.
Yeah, that's true. That's just disappointing.
Yeah, it's really sad that your game actually became reality, and now I'm sad.
Oh man. I don't think it would be good to have a cross-eyed pilot. Yeah, that a legally blind taxi driver. Yeah, right.
So I got a story. The other day I went out with my cousin because he came into town from Asheville, North Carolina, and I hadn't seen him in a while, so I went out with him, and he was with a lot of his old frat brothers and a couple of friends that he'd had from the college that he went to. But there was this one girl that was there, and she was telling this story to everyone. I guess what had happened was she'd gone to Kansas to go see a concert, and she was getting into her car after the concert, and someone just slammed into her rental car, like just bashed the shit out of it, like totaled the shit out of this rental car. And she didn't have the insurance on it. Like, she had the insurance to like cover up to a certain amount, but after that she has to pay back enough.
Right.
So I guess like what happened was, since it was a hit and run and there were no cops, like she gave the license plate to the cops and stuff. I guess in Kansas, apparently, what she was telling me is that if you don't know, like, they can only prosecute the owner of the vehicle. They can't prosecute the driver, and since they can't prove that the driver was driving that car at that moment because they didn't stop, she's out all this money. And so I was thinking, this is an ingenious time for me to tell you about my new idea for a business. which is I'm going to move to Kansas City and I'm going to open up a car rental place. Okay. But it's just going to be filled with like shit cars from the 80s. And it's just to go get through Kansas. So like on either side, on Colorado and in Kansas City, you rent my car and return them to the depot on the other side. And it's just basically a ferry system where you can just kick the shit out of other cars. And as long as you get away, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
It's my dystopian idea of being like, welcome to a shit car auto. They may not be the best cars, but you won't lose anything off of them. Like
Larry's Lemons.
Larry's Lemons. Man, I should change my name to Larry Potts.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's gonna be my CD name. Like, I'll wear like a white belt all the time and like a suit. But the suit's got to be just loose enough to where it looks like it fits me like poorly, but like it's like I tried.
It's got like a little tear.
Yeah, it's just like the padding on the arms is just a little bit too big to make me look a little bit too much like a box.
Yeah, right.
And then like underneath it, I have to have like a white like button-up shirt, but it's short sleeved.
Right.
Because you trust me then.
That's how can you trust somebody with a long sleeve button up?
I don't know. I mean, they don't seem very keen on the weather. So, and I don't want someone that doesn't know what's going on in the weather to sell me a car, rent me a car.
That's true.
So yeah, that was one of my thoughts from the week. Another one was So you guys have seen the Secrets of, or the what is it, the Secret of Nim? Yeah. I watched this video and I was telling you a little bit about it, but I was like, I'll probably talk about it on the podcast, so I'm not going to tell you too much. So you can both be surprised.
Okay.
But it was invented off of this. So the Secret of Nim is a movie about mice. And it's really creepy, and you should never show your children it. Although I did watch it as a child, I'm sure that many of you out there did as well. But it's based off of an experiment that was done in the 60s by a doctor under the Department of, I think it was under the Department of Health. I don't think it was the FCC or anything else. Yeah, it was the Department of Health, I'm pretty sure. But it was it's a program that they were doing, which basically gave the idea of the more that people, like the more that the population explodes, you can have an infinite amount of population as long as the resources are up. But after a certain amount of, like, if you just had infinity resources and stuff like that, and you had a lot of like people, like the population keep going up, it's going to eventually cause psychological problems. And so what they did was they built this like city, like this little city. And initially it started off with like a 4-block kind of range, representing kind of a cityscape. And they were separated by like a wall in the middle that made a cross. And then over that they made 2 bridges and another like tunnel that went through one, so it was a giant U. And basically the it was called the Mouse Utopia experiment. And so basically what happened was they started to notice that the more and more that this population rose, the more odd that these mice's behavior started to get, because basically they had the same amount of food in every one of the areas. They didn't put more food in one or not, but they started to notice that the social environment changed, where like more and more people or more and more mice would pack into a certain area, and then eventually they would wind up kind of getting into these brawls and fights, because the males would wind up being beta males. Like you would have like these alpha males who had all the women, and like they had these harems and these like blockades and stuff, and then all the other males were just trying to scrape by, and so because of that they were violent, and and what they started to notice is that like fertility rates started to go down, like childhood infancy like deaths started to go up. They started to notice that where mice, like if they have children, then the other male mice won't follow them in. Their social like structure on that would just completely go out the window and stuff. And so it started to become this idea that they started to build, that our population is going to start losing what our humanity is the larger that the population was going up. And it only made me think about this because we watched Blade Runner last night. And if you look at even just the artwork of all like the Blade Runners and everything, it's this dystopian like world that everything keeps getting built up, but it's all on the same level, and people get pushed farther or closer and closer and closer together, that the idea is like, I'm like, what happens when it becomes a dog eat dog kind of thing? But if you want to look more on it, look up the Utopia mouse experiments. It's really, really weird.
Yeah, okay, it kind of reminds me of this thing called the Commons problem. Have you heard of that? It's pretty much the whole reason we have flush toilets today.
Oh, is it because of like the whole like if you keep dumping all of your shit out on the sidewalk and stuff like that, it's gonna spread disease a lot easier, and that's why we have sanitation systems.
Yeah, but like, but the reason they like figured it out is they call it the Commons problem. Like, whenever people started migrating to London, like the population went from like 1 million to 3 million in like 30 years.
Yeah,
and people were still just like taking all of their waste to the nearest water source. And so, like...
The Thames River.
Exactly, the Thames River. And so, like, they would just dump all of their shit and all of their industrial waste and everything and all their trash into it. And so, over the course of 30 years, all of a sudden you, like, triple the amount of people to 3 million people doing that. And then cholera starts becoming a huge deal. They used to think it was a gas. They used to think the disease was in the smell. Because the smell was so bad, you could see clouds of stink.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But yeah, they figured that out with the Commons problem, and the Commons problems as like the reason you don't ever have like common field area for like multiple farmers to graze their herd is because at some point when you just have a bunch of people coming through and just grazing the land over and over again rather than having like a regulated pace, you're going to overgraze the land, you're going to overuse the resources, and it's going to become completely useless. Or your waterway, if you don't regulate what's put into it or what happens to it, it's gonna get filled with shit.
Right.
Essentially.
On a much weirder note, once again, one of my favorite topics apparently to talk on here is about internet folklore. Because we talked about Jeff the Killer the other day. Yeah. We talked about Slender Man. One of the things that I read about the other day, it was a story called Mother Horseeye. Have you heard of Mother Horseeye? No, either of you? Yeah. Okay, so It started off on Reddit with this like weird title. Like, everyone on Reddit has a name, like they have a username. And so there was this one that was like 9 mother, 9 horse, 9 mother eye. And so like they just shortened it down to Mother Horse Eye. And I guess eventually this guy started just posting on random subreddits. Like he'd post on like funny for a minute, and then he'd like post something. But there were always these like weird dystopian alternate realities that he would like talk about. Like he would basically tell stories as if he were these people in history that never existed or like did exist and died and stuff like that. And so it just became this like weird chronicle of people digging through Reddit to try to find this. Eventually they made a subreddit for it so they could keep track of everything, and Mother Horseeye started actually contacting the subreddit that he found of himself. And so it became this like huge concept of an idea for how people will make fiction in the future.
Yeah.
Where instead of like writing books and stuff like that, you put out a bunch of different things where people dig through and become an investigator on a particular story itself. But he started to do this, and then like all these weird things started to happen. Like he would post a little bit, and then he would go AWOL for a while, and then all of a sudden the Reddit group was put to private, and everyone was kicked out. And then they opened up a Wikipedia, and the Wikipedia was like working for a while, and then they unlocked like the Reddit page, and there was even more things, and it just got insane. And then like BuzzFeed picked it up, and then it just exploded. But like it was really interesting just to see this whole concept of this like what would seem like the rants of a madman if you were just on like our hardware, where you're just like, oh, I'm looking at things about tools, and this person's talking about this alternate reality scape of like Vietnam and stuff.
Yeah, right.
And it all revolved around this like weird, almost Lovecraftian kind of idea, where from what I had experienced, from what I understood, because I've read Lovecraft and stuff like that. But it was like this. It was about this like flesh, this like incarnated flesh. But it wasn't like a person or anything. It was like a throat would like be like it was a story about a guy being in Vietnam, and he noticed that there was this like just what looked like a throat that had been ripped out, being sucked into the ground, like burrowing and stuff like that. And you'd have these like weird kind of concepts of like hands that would move themselves and then like try to like hide it. So it was this concept of this like weird creature that was like made up of like collections of flesh and stuff, and it was just really weird. But it sounds like it would be super interesting as a book.
What's it called again?
It's called Mother Horseye.
Mother Horseye.
Yeah.
And that's just like a rant. Oh, that sounds that's so weird.
Yeah.
People do that?
Yeah.
Man, that takes like, I don't know. Like, to just, well, I mean, first off, just to like post little pieces of a story and then like he had to have like developed it as it was happening. Like,
I mean, it seems sporadic at first, but I mean, like after a while, he himself admitted that he was just an alcoholic. And so like, the thing is either like, and he said that he was illiterate, and a lot of people think that like a lot of things that he was telling them was something to like bring this like story forward, where they're like, oh well, he's this guy who doesn't really have a high school education, he's a drunk, and he's just ranting like, but they're like, but his writing's too good for this particular thing. So that's how they started to go, well, maybe this isn't just like a crazy person, maybe this is someone that's actually trying to make like a weird new version or a new way of like reading fiction where you have to dig through everything using different internet proxies and stuff.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah, that's gonna be the new thing.
yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
I was gonna say, we've got our regent English teacher here. Let's talk about what your ideas on the what are your ideas on this idea of fiction right here and stuff. I know that you do technical writing, but I mean, like, you do enjoy plenty of things. That's why we're going to make a podcast and stuff. So
I think that's interesting. I was thinking back on, like, I work at, like, well, I don't care. I work at Party City in the past with costume, especially this year, like, all the younger kids, but it wasn't like high school, it was like middle school that were like asking about not even Jeff the Killer, Slenderman, but other stuff I'd never even heard of.
Right.
And it's like adults are like, what are they talking about? But they don't care.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, it's just something I see on the internet. But it's like, how weird does this stuff get? Like it's just like,
right, like how
really
deep can it
interesting
go?
to think about, like the stuff we read on the internet, how it can grow and how, like, it's not just something like stupid we see on the internet. It's like creative. It can be like
oh yeah.
built upon. Like, it's really interesting that it can become something else.
I like the format of like the idea of just being like, we're gonna sporadically post around, and then like there's like one central hub where people are like, oh, did you see this? Like, I found this on this and stuff, and you just start to get fragments and pieces. It's kind of like have you ever read the book House of Leaves?
This sounds familiar.
I think I have it somewhere. Oh yeah, it's right down there. But it's basically a book that's written in what seems like a double book, where it's like there's a like a file that this guy finds, and then it's what's going on in his life, and then what's going on in the actual file of this like weird house and events and stuff that are going on.
I just feel like the structure of like finding that stuff, like pieces of it. It's like, oh, I gotta dig and find this. I think it adds to like the creativity of like a story more than like if I was to like read this on like a book format or something.
Oh yeah, like if you were
like,
just to have everything like
together,
assembled,
yeah.
like it's the assembly that also makes it
and that's
interesting.
what's really cool about it. As a writer, I'm like, interesting. It's magic.
Have you ever seen those things that you can buy to like mail to people where it'll like anonymously send packages to people? They like, you can choose who it would be. But
Is that the one where you can get like a glitter bomb?
no, well, no.
It's just like, boom, fuck you, you hate glitter, you'll never get it out anyway.
Yeah, right. You can send people like a pile of shit. Like,
yeah.
no, but like
That's the way of the future.
How do they monitor what gets sent? Do they care? Like, how did?
I think like some of these websites are actually like they
what if you
literally
stick a
want
finger
to
in the
send
mail?
you shit.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. No, yeah, like the website does it. Like they sterilize it.
Oh,
like,
okay. I
clean
was
it.
like, what the?
they sterilize the feces.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it's a thing.
Yeah. But anyways, so like you can like set it up to where like if I wanted in the future, Wes, you might get like a box in the mail that you won't know who it's from, and like you open it up and there's just like old looking documents and like relics inside of it, and like there's like a note that kind of like tells you a little bit about like the stuff that you got, and like you may or may not understand that it's a puzzle when you get it, but then like months later like another one will get sent to you, and then you'll open that up and you'll be like, what the fuck, and it'll make sense and it'll connect to the first one, and then you can make it to where it takes like 3 boxes for the person to really understand what the hell's even going on.
Right.
But like you get all these like really cool knickknacks and all this stuff that's like really well like taken care of and made to look realistic. So like you get this whole mystery experience through the mail. And I think that's pretty cool.
That is interesting. I'm just curious what you'd do with it. Like if you were to send something to somebody. Like,
I mean, I would just probably get scared and think that it was anthrax the entire time. I would be like, it's, I don't
Probably
understand. I don't
anthrax.
understand it. It's probably covered in anthrax.
Yeah, right. You'd be like, well, this box doesn't have a name on it.
Anthrax. Yeah, it has my name on it, but it has from nobody, and I didn't order it. Although I'd probably have ordered something, be like, oh yeah, this guy, what the fuck, this isn't it. Like, I'd just be mad.
I thought I was an idiot. Be like, ooh, a present.
Ooh,
What
present.
is it?
It's filled with old stuff that doesn't make any sense, like documents.
And then I just blame the floor and Kyle would lay in it. Kyle would be like, ooh, box. You gotta get a series of boxes in the mail. My cat loves it. Like.
Yeah, it's true. Your cat would. Yeah, cats love boxes, except if they're covered in anthrax, and they're not so fun. So beware, there could be anthrax in those boxes.
There could be anthrax in those boxes.
But yeah, like, I guess the only other thing, like, yeah. So, you guys like to party?
Of course. I know for a fact you don't like to party.
I know for a fact you don't like to party.
So you guys saw Blade Runner last night?
Yeah, we saw the new Blade Runner last night. We also saw that I'm supposed to talk about Loving Vincent. Because I did promise that we would talk about it on the next podcast.
Yeah,
because I was going to see it because I was going on a date.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Loving Vincent.
I really enjoy it. I mean, like,
Oh, yeah.
Chloe really liked it too, I'm pretty sure, but I'll let her speak for herself since she's on the podcast and I don't have to talk for her now.
Well, you haven't seen it, have you? Well, I don't want to give anything away. It's
You can't ruin a movie
What?
for me.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think there's things that we can talk about that don't necessarily give away the plot. Basically,
Yeah.
it's the idea that, like, it takes place a year after Vincent Van Gogh's death, but it's kind of, it's a piece about him. It's all shot in, like, the same aesthetic that all of his paintings would be, and it's really, really great to see live on it. Like, you kind of, like, I don't know, it was weird to see, like, to look at the picture Starry Night, but then to actually experience the picture of Starry Night and, like, the sunflowers and the mailman picture
Well,
and
that's
stuff like
what,
that.
when I saw it, I thought it was just going to be a chain of paintings. I was like, okay, so it's just going to be, like, all these paintings we know. But it was like, they made a movie and then put the paintings over it.
Yeah.
And then, like, oh, here's this one painting that you recognize. And, like, the scenes flow together in that way. And that's why I was like,
I think the only thing that freaked me out about it was, like, I eventually started to look at their mouths because it's the only part that they didn't paint over. And so it's these realistic teeth coming out of, like, paintings' faces. And it was just really weird. I couldn't stop focusing on it. Like, especially with Chris O'Dowd in it. Like, because he had the giant beard. It was just his mouth that just, like, you could just see his teeth. And, like, I knew that they weren't painted teeth because, like, in between the teeth, it was just painted too perfectly for especially Van Gogh. So, like, I was just like, this is just weird.
well, it took, like, 8 to 10 years or something to make. And it was like,
Yeah, it was like 100-something artists
yeah,
that painted all of
people,
these.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And it was
I would like to look up, like, how they, like, watching how they did it. Like, they just sit and, like,
oh yeah.
like, have a board, a storyboard, or what, you know, what happens.
I feel like
the scene, like,
I mean, probably what I felt it looked like was like they've got a lot of people to paint like the background scenes, like just like the landscape backgrounds and stuff like that, and then like the people were probably filmed and then they were painted over in that same kind of style, and that's how they kind of like laid it over the background, like where they would have a green screen they shot everything on, they would have like the paintings kind of thing and stuff, and so.
I thought it all happened within, what, like, a week, maybe? Like, a few days?
Yeah, it was only like the story takes place in it's like a week, I think.
And he's not even in it, it's just, like,
Yeah, I mean, you get like clips of Van Gogh, like where they like
yeah,
go
it's,
to
like,
flashbacks about him,
yeah,
and like,
and you see him, but...
and then like at the end of it, they tell like about all of the characters and all of the paintings and stuff like that, which was really
Yeah,
interesting.
every single character was real, and it showed,
Yeah.
like, either he had painted pictures of him, or, like, there was, like, a black and white photo of him.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool.
That's really cool.
But it was just stunning to look at, like...
I'm sure it was.
I mean, I wouldn't know, but it was like a weird trip, because it was all moving all the time, like the pieces of a painting, you know.
Yeah, and then we saw Blade Runner, and that was also aesthetically pleasing. I really liked the oranges and the blues in it, and even the reds, I guess. Like,
The music was really like...
yeah, Chloe was really into the music about it. last night.
Every time it happened, I was like, ooh, like I just
Yeah.
react because like you could feel it. But
And,
It was like
just like
so much like on point with like the atmosphere and vibe of like
Yeah.
the old Blade Runner movies that it's weird.
Well, that's what I talked about. Is like these
Yeah,
guys had to know what they're doing. Like they were
Yeah.
fans. Like they knew.
Well, yeah,
It was
that's something that
amazing.
me and Chloe have been talking about a lot lately. Is like so many people are obsessed with Marvel, like the Marvel universe right now,
Yeah.
and I feel like now they're just pumping out like basically the writers that they're getting for these Marvel films are. Just people that are like, oh, I'm kind of a nerd, and they'll read like half a comic book and be like, I'm writing whatever I want off of it because it just has to be based. It's the Marvel universe now, and I feel like they're ignoring really cool stories. Like I was telling Chloe last night, I was like when we went and saw Thor, they have a bit of Planet Hulk in it, but it's just like just enough to like get you interested in going to it because you like Planet Hulk. There's really nothing about Planet Hulk almost in it except for like one scene.
It was like the trick in the trailer.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing.
But that's the thing is like everyone that I ever talked to that was excited about Thor Ragnarok was like, oh yeah man, they put aspects of Planet Hulk and it's gonna be awesome, and Planet Hulk is rad. Like it was so good. But I feel like they just took someone that was like, I'm a writer and I can write about the Marvel universe because now I have everything access at my fingertips because they'll just give me all the comic books.
Yeah.
But in order to actually, I think, build a proper story, you have to be obsessed with these things for years.
Yeah.
Like if you were really a comic book nerd and like you got to write your own story, you would probably only be able to have like one or two stories because you're so focused on making it perfect.
Right.
Where now like Marvel, because it's owned by Disney, wants them to have it out they want something new out every year.
Yeah, right.
So you're getting like 10 movies of just kind of okay stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I think they're leaning heavily on the comedy now instead of like the action and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, every Marvel movie, each new one gets more Disney. It's just like
Yeah.
it's not funny. It's just like more like phony funny. It's not even kid funny. It's just like okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like dad jokes.
Yeah.
Well, and also like to me, like the more you oversaturate the market with the same thing,
Yeah.
and if like you're the only one doing Marvel films and like they're all just like over the top action films, like at some point people are going to be like, okay, over the top action is now just normal in this universe, and it is now no longer an action film. It's a fantasy universe where over the top action happens all the time. And so like people are like not necessarily like sure that that's what they want to go into. They don't want to go into like this fantasy world where they can't like relate to what's going on.
Right.
And so now we're at where we're at. We're like they can't just be action films. They have to do something else to grab our attention.
That breeds the point. We all read graphic novels and stuff like that here. Well, if you were a director and you had to direct a movie about a graphic novel, which graphic novel would you direct?
Spaceman.
Spaceman. Okay, yeah, that's the one that you really like. The one about like the monkey people,
Yeah, man.
but not the sexy monkey people.
No, not sexy.
Hashtag sexy monkey people.
I'm just dark and read. I want to see Mouse done.
Mouse
Man, that
would be
cool.
interesting.
That would be cool.
And then Persepolis was great. It is a film, so I want to actually see.
Yeah,
a documentary
that
about
one's really. I've seen the film. I've never
Uh-huh.
read the book. I told you last night, Chloe, but the one that I would want to do, which no studio would ever let me release, especially during the Trump administration, is Superman Red Son.
Oh yeah, that
Because
would be so cool.
if I got to release a Superman movie that would just put you in this like weird alternate universe about Superman landing in the Soviet Union, I just thought it would be an interesting spin that because you could do so many different things with it. Like we all know Smallville, we all know like him being raised on a farm and stuff like that, but what if he was raised on a collective farm and then like the Soviets like found out that he was this like Mega Man, and like what would they do would they do experiments on him? Would they like make him this like great hero of the Soviet Union of communism? Like what would they? And so that was interesting to me, and that's what I would want to do.
Yeah, that'd be good. Spaceman is kind of like a 9-part mini comic, and like not a ton of people really seem to know about it, but like people in the comic book world seem to know about it, and like those guys all seem to get it. But it is quite possibly the most like unique story I've ever like ran into, where like NASA creates these like human monkey hybrid men to send to Mars to do like mining operations and set up colonies and stuff. And like while the guys are on Mars, or while these hybrid monkey people are on Mars, NASA gets shut down. And so whenever they come back to Earth, they just get orphaned off into society because they're like, NASA's gone. And it's like hundreds of years later. Like NASA's been gone for hundreds of years. And so they just like all try to figure out how to survive. And that's just like the like prologue. That's like setting you up for what's going on in the story. Like, it doesn't tell you all of this stuff up front. Like, you have to learn it through reading the book. And, like, to understand why your main character looks like a monkey, kind of. But yeah, and so, like, but the main character is, like, one of these monkeys who's orphaned off, and he's a junker. Like, he goes out into the ocean and gets junk and then comes back and sells it. Oh. And there's also this TV show that's kind of like The Bachelor, except it's for, like, orphan children and, like, adoptive parents, where there's, like, 10 children and, like, a set of parents come in and they, like, go through each episode and eliminate kids. And, yeah, so, but, like, the, like, most popular girl on the TV show that everyone thinks is going to get picked, like, runs away, because it's, like, obviously crazy. And,
it's like Hunger Games-esque. Like...
Yeah. And so she's running away from the police, and, like, the junker guy sees this girl running away from people and decides to help her out. And then he immediately becomes the most wanted man in the country because this TV star just jumped on the boat, and they think he's evil because he's one of the monkey people. Like, he has to be bad. So, like,
right.
And then one of the other spacemen who works for the government as an assassin starts hunting him down. And that's the basic whole premise of the whole thing. And, like you just said, like, you're just watching. It's mind blowing. Like, it's one of the, I can't, like, that doesn't even do it justice. Like,
it's called Spaceman?
Spaceman. Cool. Yeah, and you can read the whole thing in, like, 30 minutes if you really wanted to.
Well, I guess when I thought about, like, if I wanted to see one done as a movie, I was still thinking of it in, like, in Persepolis, like, it's still, like, looks like the comic, like, the animation form.
Yeah, so you weren't just talking about the story that you wanted to do.
Yeah, Mouse, or even 3 story, those are 2 that I'd like to see in that form.
Yeah.
It still carries, like, the animation. I think I'm still on Loving Vincent, so I'm like, yeah, more animation.
Right, yeah.
So, but, because you don't see a lot of that, because even with, like, the real life human adaptations of the comics, I feel like you might lose a piece of it.
And I'd like to tell all of you at this moment that we've been actually sampling me and Chloe's new podcast,
yeah, right.
which is actually us reviewing the AFI Top 100, although we were just giving you clips of things that aren't in the Top 100. Right. So yeah, right now it's currently untitled. It's the Untitled Wes and Chloe Movie Project. Which might actually be a really fun name just to confuse people.
Number one best American
best American movie podcast. That's what we're gonna name it.
Just keep watching to learn the name. You never figure it out.
You'll never figure it out. Yeah, I'm sure I'll talk about it a little bit later too, or like more in this. But yeah, just know that like me and Chloe are gonna go. We're gonna watch like 3 movies for every podcast. We're going to review what we think of them. Most of them we're not going to watch together. That way we don't taint our own opinions of them. And so you might actually get to see Mom and Dad fight on the air. But we're going to start off with Ben-Hur and Toy Story and Bye Bye Birdie. So that should be on the first. That should be the first episode.
Was it Bye Bye Birdie? Or I thought it was Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Oh, is it Yankee Doodle Dandy? Yeah. It might be Yankee Doodle Dandy. Just know that the first 2 are going to be Ben-Hur and Toy Story.
Those are very, very different.
Yeah, right.
Like
which would be really, which is going to be really fun about it. It's like you never know what you're. Well, I mean, you'll know if you look up the fucking list, but like.
I was going to say it's a very specific list. Actually, that's why
it's a very specific list of 100 different movies. But yeah, so we're going to do that. Hopefully, we're going to have some secret episodes for you people too, so that like. You know, you can kind of...
How will they find out?
You give us some shout-outs about what you want us to watch.
Well, you can find out by going to the What's Haunting Wes and Nate page or the Waking the Kraken page that we've set up on Facebook and Twitter. We'll try to pitch it for us, and eventually, hopefully we'll bring you all into the fold on that.
Yeah.
Into the fold.
So...
Into the Terry fold.
Into the Terry fold. To the Terry cloth.
No.
But yeah, like so yeah, that should be that's our newest project that we're gonna be working on here at Moth Brothers.
What?
So keep getting more of those podcasts out there. Mm-hmm. Keep listening to us. Don't get sick of me. I know that my voice. I'll try to work on some projects where I don't have my voice in it, so that you don't always have to listen to me.
Well, I'll talk over you in our podcast.
That's true. Yeah. What else? We now have our Facebook and our Twitter up. Our Facebook and Twitter pages up. Our Facebook, you can find us at
the Twitter and the face space.
Yeah, you can find us at Waking the Kraken on Facebook and Wake Kraken, I think.
Wait, crack.
Yeah. They wouldn't let me do Waking the Kraken on there, so I had to come up with something stupid. I almost did Woke Kraken.
I was gonna say
I thought it would be really funny.
thinking.
But I was like, if this goes on any longer, then I was like, I don't know if that'll be funny anymore. It's just be stuck with it. It'd be like someone that's like YOLO Dragon or something.
Follow us on Twitter. Woke crack.
Woke Kraken.
That's funny.
Yep, it's Waking Kraken.
Waking Kraken.
It's Waking Kraken at Twitter.
Right on.
So, and that's how you can keep up on all the news and maybe some of the silly photos that I take of Alex while he's sleeping at night, but don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
But yeah, I believe that's all that I've got for the day. As always, for Waking the Kraken, I'm Wes Ponce.
I'm Alex Koeneman.
And our guest, Chloe Massengale. You want to shout out to yourself? Do it.
That's me. I'm Chloe. Peace out.
You seem much. All right, cool.
That's all I got.